Good morning and good evening to all, and welcome to the Data-Driven Community virtual meeting. My name is Ronen Arieli, and I'm honored to host this meeting today. Some word about the community. The Data-Driven Community manages two branches. One is the weekly meeting of the Cloud Data-Driven User Group, like today. The second one is the annual conference called Future Data-Driven Summit. Next week, on June 22, we will host Jeff Harry for a very important and interesting discussion about how can we help everyone in daily conduct at the workplace. And as I mentioned, the Future Data-Driven Summit 2023, it will be held on September 27. You are welcome to register to the conference. We got about 200 sessions that were submitted by 96 top speakers. We ask from the community to help us in evaluate the sessions in order to bring you the best sessions for the conference. The evaluation should be finished in about 10 hours. We are just in the last minutes of the evaluation. Next step, we will start to schedule the selected sessions. So keep follow the conference at our website for updates. Today we are hosting Pawel Potasinski. I'm not sure I pronounced the
It's okay.
name
Polish is a hard language to manage, so just Pawel. Call me Pawel.
Pawel, it's simple. Okay, so Pawel is a senior program manager at Microsoft Azure Synapse Analytics program team. The topic we will hear today was first announced only a few weeks ago. This actually was the big buzz of the Microsoft Build event. So Pawel, it's better you will explain and maybe add some word about yourself as well. You are welcome to share your screen and take control.
Of course, thanks.
Now, just 1 second, you can share your screen. I just forgot to mention everyone again. You can use the chat. You are welcome to use the chat for questions and discussions. And from time to time, I will point the question to Pawel according to the time that we have. Okay, Pawel?
Yeah.
You can take control.
Thanks very much. So hello, everyone. As I was introduced already, my name is Pawel Potasinski. I'm a senior program manager, attention on the Microsoft Fabric community team. Now we changed a bit. So I used to be Synapse guy. Now it's Fabric because we also take care about Fabric community, not just Azure Synapse community, which is by far bigger. Now, welcome to this session. This is Microsoft Fabric introduction and quick start. The purpose of this session is to give you an overview of what Microsoft Fabric is, how to start working with it, and how to engage in the Fabric community. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if you're looking for all the news from Microsoft Build, then you can find all those news in a single place. There is book of news under this link, aka.ms/build-book-of-news. I hope this link is as simple as possible for you. So build books of news. That's something you should go for. If you're looking for more information, what was announced beyond Fabric. But I will focus on Fabric today. So let's just stay on a single product announced at Build. So behind Microsoft Fabric, there is a very specific need of people working with data. Please simplify. I want to be a CDO, Chief Data Officer, and not CIO, not Chief Integration Officer. We hear this a lot from our customers. This is actually an authentic quote from one of the CDOs of Microsoft's biggest customers. So there is a need to simplify things. Especially now in difficult economic conditions, customers are tired of paying tax on extensive infrastructure, including cloud infrastructure and its integration. Now, analytics has a fairly predictable template if you look at building solutions and running projects. It starts with integration of the data coming from various sources in different formats. Data is collected for analytics in the cloud. It often ends in the data lake. And then you can build your analytical solutions on top of that. We have data engineering to make the data take shape and quality for serving data. And finally, we serve the data using warehouses or lakehouses, sometimes a combination of both, so that the users can consume data in business intelligence tools and other tools like data science, for example. So over time, they may be also a need to analyze data in near real time or implement projects using data science to enrich data. It would be also good to have some data management, so data governance and management, to have control over where the data flows, where sensitive data or data covered by laws and regulations is located, how systems and elements of analytical solutions are related, connected to each other. Data integration and data engineering. Well, sometimes you can consider them as one, because it depends on how you spread the responsibilities in your teams. But some people use data integration as a term covering ingestion and maybe some initial transformation, while engineering is mostly about working with some languages like SQL and Python to shape the data and then put it in kind of data products, Then, so
1 second.
Sorry? Yeah.
We have a request for the link that you mentioned. If you can put it in the chat. And
you mean the book of news?
Yes.
Okay.
And there is one question we will use this time to ask: what is the difference between the data engineering?
I already covered that.
Okay.
I already covered that. I hope so. So, oh, sorry, something pasted not right. I have to change those link. Sorry. Yeah, it's better probably now. Good. Okay, I hope the link works for you. Now, to continue, Microsoft has, it seems like we have all the products to do all those elements, from data integration, data ingestion, ending up with data science, real-time analytics, etc. So what's more, all those elements are in the form of platform as a service, services or products in the cloud. So this removes significant part of configuration from users, especially on the infrastructure level. So seems like there's everything in place, and yet building analytical solutions is still not that easy. Okay. And why is it complex? First of all, there are many different products with different user experiences, user interfaces, and different APIs. These products typically they use different formats, data formats. Sometimes those formats are Microsoft proprietary. The products can work in different models, serverless or dedicated pools or clusters. There's a mix of platform as a service products and software as a service products, for example, Power BI. There are different business models and licensing models. So it's not easy to actually calculate the overall cost of the platform or even estimate it. I think some of you may know that even licensing of Power BI may be quite challenging, and estimating the cost of Synapse, Azure Synapse, can be actually a matter of PhD thesis, because there are so many factors that can impact the cost. Now, all those factors actually impact that it requires to become an expert or have an expert knowledge, and makes the integration effort quite a significant part of analytical projects. So again, simplification is needed. Now, that's what we actually try to do with Microsoft Fabric. At Build, we announced Microsoft Fabric in public preview. public preview means that it's still not the product that you should take it for production, but you can give it a try. You can check the scenarios. You can check if it works for you, and learn about the vision, learn about the key pillars, try it yourself. Now, what is Fabric? Fabric is a unified platform that provides everything that an organization may need for data analytics, from data integration, data ingestion, and data lake up to business users working with Microsoft Office. It includes data integration, engineering, warehousing, data science, real-time analytics, and business intelligence workloads. It is delivered as a single software as a service product. You may actually treat like we integrated Power BI, Azure Data Factor, and Azure Synapse into one product, but it's way more than that. It provides automatic integration, optimization, common architecture, common user interface, central management for all workloads in the analytical project. And also, you may consider taking as an analogy, it's a kind of Microsoft Office for data, for analytics, because if you look at Office, Excel and PowerPoint serve for different purposes. But many activities in both tools you do the same way. For example, copy and paste. So we try to build the same with Fabric for data analytics. So having a foundation and the same user experience should make building projects in analytics using different workloads easier. Now, we build this platform of 4 pillars. The first one is that it provides a complete analytics platform in a software as a service model. So you don't create infrastructure. You have minimal impact on the tweaks and knobs to improve performance. It should work out of the box, and it should cover end-to-end analytics in many different scenarios. It should be easy to use and allow to achieve results quickly. So going from data to insights should be quickly. Now, the second pillar, it is lake-centric and open. All Fabric workloads work with one lake, the platform that is actually central data lake. And by that, we minimize data management time and the effort by eliminating data movement and duplication across platform elements. So imagine that you can store data that is being used by data engineers in the lakehouse or data lake and lakehouse, and also by SQL developers in data warehouse. And this data can be actually cross-queried and joined together to bring your analytical results. And also the same applies to real-time analytics and custom databases. I will tell you a bit more about OneLake later during this session, but just to give you this overview, OneLake is considered as this storage foundation, central storage foundation for the whole platform. Now, Fabric is also based on open data formats. Delta is actually chosen as our standard data format to store the data behind Fabric items like Lakehouse, for example. So it's easy to integrate Fabric with third-party tools because we use open formats. And what I will cover later on, OneLake allows to easily integrate, just like you normally work with Azure Data Lake storage generation 2. Now, the third pillar is that Fabric is designed to support every business user because, after all, if you consider all this data warehouses and data science projects, they are meaningless if we don't give data and information to people who need them to support business decisions. So it's all about business users and the way they can access, consume the information. That is all the purpose. And it should be, again, easy to use, not just based on code-based approach, but also allow people with skills of low-code or no-code citizen developer to step into this platform and try work with data. And the fourth pillar, last but not least, Fabric was designed with the AI era in mind. You might have seen some demos on Copilot. So Copilot originally it was introduced in Power BI, but it will be also built into all workloads of Fabric. So you will be assisted as a developer or citizen developer, you'll be assisted by Copilot in writing code or even creating Power BI reports in time. So again, this is we keep in mind that now we have all the tools. There's a bunch of tools like large language models, Copilot, that already exist on the market, and why not use them to support productivity of developers? So having those four pillars and going into some more details, again, complete platform based on software as a service approach. So a single, let's say, single product instead of 7 products combined and stitched together in the project. Lake Sense you can open, you can integrate from external world easily, and also you avoid copying data from between different elements of the project. It's intuitive and easy to use and support business users. And finally, Copilot everywhere where it can be positioned in the product. You should see it in time. It's not yet there, but you see the first sign of that in Power BI Desktop. We presented Copilot as an assistant for building DAX measures. Now, Fabric provides seven what we call experiences. You can also call them workloads or personas. 6 of those experiences are available in the public preview. So going one by one, it's Data Factory, not Azure Data Factory, but just Fabric Data Factory. It is offering both pipelines known from Azure Data Factory and data flows Gen 2. So the next generation of data flows known from Power BI. So Power BI people will have one tool for data ingestion and integration, while people coming from Azure will have their pipelines. There are 4 workloads covered by Microsoft Synapse. So actually, next generation of Azure Synapse. We have data engineering, which covers working with lakehouses using Spark notebooks, so Python, Scala, R, and SQL. We have data science, which is a corner for data scientists writing code, but also using notebooks, who want to build a full MLOps process for their own models, or easily use and incorporate ready-to-use models, including large language models, so Azure OpenAI. We have data warehouse, which is a single unified SQL experience, so no serverless versus dedicated pools like we have in Azure Synapse, but just one single SQL engine for implementing data warehouses. And we have real-time analytics when it comes to Synapse, which incorporates connection to streaming data and covering observational analytics scenarios. So things you know probably from Azure Data Explorer. It's actually incorporating Azure Data Explorer, so Custo databases and Custo queries in KQL in Fabric. And also you have very well-known Power BI. Actually, that's number 1 workload we should start. That it's actually the baseline, because if you look at the user experience, you will see that it's well-known Power BI portal. So no need to explain here. It's the leading Power BI in the market, the best tool for business intelligence, broadly used. Now it's additionally supported by Copilot and operating with other workloads of Fabric in the same platform. And we have coming soon the 7th experience called Data Activator, which is about prescriptive analytics. So going from data or insights to action. So we will be detecting events coming in analytics and be able to trigger some actions in external platforms, tools like Power Platform, for example. Okay. Now, Fabric also provides a unification of many things. So because it's one platform, there is a common storage for our workloads, OneLake. There is unified data format used as a standard, which is Delta. There is one trial. You start one trial and you have all the workloads available. There's one sign-on using Azure Active Directory when you're there. There is the same user experience for all the experiences workloads, right? And also you organize your items like lakehouses, warehouses, and everything into well-known workspaces, just like you worked with Power BI items in the past and working right now. There will be one CI/CD process once we finally implement that. So this will also improve the way you work with Power BI. You probably noticed that there was an announcement of Git integration and projects or developer mode in Power BI desktop. So this is actually a continuation of the strategy to implement full-blown CI/CD process, but it's also covering all the workloads in Fabric. And there will be one unified security model. It's not yet there. So again, it's public preview. Things will show up from between now and general availability of the product. So as you can see, this is one big platform. The assumptions that we have is there are a couple of assumptions. One, we want to make sure that users are able to go with 5x5 experience, which is 5 seconds to sign on and 5 minutes to first insights or first wow. So it should be fast to use and explore data using Fabric. Success by default, so minimal number of knobs. You just put the data in the system, make it, shape it a bit, and you should be good without additional effort on performance tuning, for example. And finally, it should be still centrally managed, because we can imagine what can happen if you produce lots of items, artifacts in the platform, and you will be willing to track what actually is going on with your data in the platform. So again, centrally managed platform, that's the assumption. Now, there are a couple of features that are, I would say, disruptive in the platform. So I will focus on two of them, OneLake and Direct Lake. So what is OneLake? OneLake is actually, it aims to provide you a data lake as a service without needing to build it yourself. Normally, if you build a project, you have to provision a data lake, one or more data lakes. So actually right now, also you had OneDrive for documents. That's an important stuff. So now you have OneLake for all your data, just like you had OneDrive for documents. We want OneLake to be kind of OneDrive for your data, right? So it's a single unified logical data lake for the whole organization. And like OneDrive, OneLake comes automatically with every Microsoft Fabric tenant. So when you spin up Office 365, OneDrive is there. When you spin up Microsoft Fabric and you create the first item that collects and serves the data, we provision one OneLake for your tenant. So there's always one OneLake for your tenant, which allows us to implement several principles, like, for example, one copy of data. There's no need to copy data multiple times because it's there. It's in the same storage, right? Now, so again, to remember from the slide, there's always exactly one lake in the tenant of Fabric, never two, never zero, and there is no infrastructure to set up and manage. It just works. Now, OneLake is not just about the storage. It is actually compute that powers all the analytical experiences in Fabric. So in Fabric, compute is separate from storage. Separation of compute and storage is not entirely new concept, but Fabric does not just give one multiple post-compute engine for all analytics. Rather, Fabric provides multiple compute engines. So you can choose between Spark, SQL, KQL for different purposes, but still they use the same storage foundation. OneLake is open at every level. It's built on top of Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 2. So actually, you can go and connect to this storage to OneLake like you would normally connect to Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 2. Now, as I mentioned, we have standard format Delta, which stores everything that is behind items that keep data in Fabric. And also everything is managed by a single security layer, so we keep it centralized. So again, people with different preferences may work with their favorite engines on data that can be stored centrally in the same storage foundation and can be accessed by other runtimes, other analytical engines with ease. Now, I think very important aspect and very important part of One Lake story is the feature called shortcuts. Shortcut is actually nothing more than a symbolic link which points from one location to another. It reminds very much shortcuts in Windows or Linux. So the data will appear in the shortcut location as if it were physically there, but in fact it's just a logical link. And today, if you have tables in data warehouse, which you want to make available alongside other tables or files in a lakehouse, you will need to copy the data from the warehouse. So it's a copy. You copy the data. We want to avoid this. With OneLake, you simply create a shortcut in the lakehouse pointing to the warehouse, and the data will appear in your lakehouse just as you had it physically in the lakehouse without copying. So again, when the data is updated in the warehouse, you see the updates in the lakehouse and it's reflected immediately, right? So also, shortcut is not just reserved for Fabric entities. So yes, you can create shortcuts between different objects in Fabric, but also you can use shortcuts to virtualize existing storages, external storages that sit on any cloud. Right now, we provide option to create shortcuts for Azure Storage and Amazon S3, but in the future you will see also GCP, Google Cloud Storage. So again, this will make extremely powerful combination of data that will sit in OneLake stored locally in the platform, but also being able to access data that comes from your organization, whichever cloud you use, without copying the data. Again, this is just a logical link to the data, and you will be able to query this data using your favorite runtimes. Now, the second feature that, yeah, sorry?
1 second. First of all, there are several questions, and it was raised at the build event as well. Can you focus on, in short, on the difference between Fabric and Databricks, Synapse, Cloudera? Several people mentioned those different services, and it's one question.
Yeah, so actually, you know, I could probably spend another session on explaining differences, but if you look at Synapse, for example, you have different runtimes and different runtimes. Unfortunately, they often use proprietary formats. Like, for example, if you create dedicated SQL pool to access the data that sit in this pool from serverless SQL, you have to copy the data and you have to do additional effort. Here, it's not required. If you look at Databricks is a great platform for data engineering, but it does not cover all the workloads that sit in Fabric. So, for example, if you want to go with observational analytics or business intelligence, you have everything in place. So you have Power BI and KQL Custo databases. It doesn't mean that you can't combine Fabric with Databricks. Yes, you can. I believe the combination of OneLake for keeping your data in one place and then access OneLake from Databricks and keep the outcomes of your data engineering, the products of your data engineering in OneLake, and then access from Power BI using Direct Lake, which I will elaborate in a second. That's a working scenario for you. If you're a Databricks fan or you build skills in Databricks, why not use Databricks along with Fabric? Try it. I saw the question about logical storage. Can we keep data locally? Yes, because under the hood, we create several Azure Data Lake storages for you. So it's not a single data lake storage. We can create multiple data storages, and you manage that, because if you create several capacities in different regions, then OneLake will contain storage accounts or Azure Data Lake storages in multiple regions. That will guarantee that your customers working with specific capacities will keep their data in specific regions. So yes, you can manage multiple regions in OneLake. Okay, so about import mode. So far, we had in Power BI 2 modes. One called import mode. When I want performance, I use import mode, because with import mode, the data is cached and optimized for BI queries. So it's actually being transferred to memory, and it's super fast. But unfortunately, if I want to see my actual state of data, I need to do refresh. Without that, I see the previous state of data. So it's fast, but not necessarily actual. With direct query mode, I can achieve that the data is actual, but then performance may be not that good because it is based completely on the underlying platform, like data warehouse, for example. So it may require some additional tweaks and optimizations to make the direct query mode working fast. In reality, I'd say 90% or even more of data sets in Power BI are import mode data sets. That's the reality, so people use import mode extremely because it's fast and it provides the best experience for business users. Now, how about a combination, or let's say, how about going with both advantages, having good performance, and having the actual data? So that's why we introduced direct link mode. That's the third mode that works in Fabric, and is based on loading Parquet formatted files directly from data lake or from one lake without having to query a SQL endpoint and without having to import or duplicate data into a Power BI dataset. So you don't do refreshes. We do all the refreshes under the hood for you to keep the data as actual as possible. And it eliminates the import requirement because we load the data directly from one lake to Power BI dataset. So unlike direct query, there's no translation to other query languages unless you hit the limitation of capacity. Yes, that's actually the only case where you'll be hitting classical direct query mode. So you may achieve good performance for I would say bigger data sets than it used to be for import mode, and still not be forced to refresh the data sets whenever you need actual data. So that's direct lake mode. I will show you the mode in a second. So with that, I think it's time for a demo because you've been waiting too long. Apologies, I have this tendency to talk too much about slides. So this is Fabric. Do not pay attention to logo or the colors. It's actually Power BI portal with custom branding. So yeah, I'm a fan of colorful things, and that's why I put some graphics. So how to actually check if it's Fabric or Power BI? It's very simple. If you look at the bottom left corner, you will see this little Power BI icon, and then I have a switcher that allows me to switch between different experiences. Okay, so you can see 6 experiences that are available in public preview. I can also go to a very nice looking homepage, which actually explains all the workloads, all the experiences for me. But let's get back to this first screen, Power BI. There is also one more place which should be visited by you if you start working with Fabric. It's the admin portal. So you go to admin portal in Power BI, even if you don't see this little icon, and here you have 2 options that you should check. First, Microsoft Fabric Preview. You have to enable this to actually access Fabric experiences, so not just Power BI, but also data engineering, warehouse, etc. You have the option to enable this feature, public preview of Fabric for specific security groups. So I actually encourage you in a bigger organization to limit the number of users for testing purposes, right? Also, you have another option called users can try Microsoft Fabric paid features, which is all about starting trial capacities. Yes, Microsoft is generous, provides capacities for users, so you can spin up a trial, which is 60-day free. It doesn't require any credit card, any Azure subscription. You just spin up something which is very much like P1 capacity in Power BI Premium, and you can play with Fabric. So yeah, it's the easiest way to start, actually. Okay. Again, you can turn off starting trial by your users because you may be willing to test Fabric based on Power BI Premium capacities or other capacities that you provide. Okay. So when you start trials, your trial capacities will be available just as other capacities in capacity settings. Here you can see trial capacities. I will not go there because I have some privacy information. There are several users created trial capacities. I don't want to show them, but it's there. So let's get back and let's try something with Fabric, okay? So first thing you need to do is to create a workspace, just like with Power BI. So I create a workspace called, well, demo. Now you have to go to advanced options and set one of the three options. Trial, which will base on trial capacity, premium capacity, which will base my workspace on Power BI premium capacity, which I don't have here, or Fabric capacity, which will be based on Fabric capacity that you spin up in Azure or you buy through M365 subscription. So I choose trial and I just click apply. Okay, so I create a workspace that is Fabric ready workspace. It's backed by capacity. Now, to start working with Fabric, I typically go and create a lakehouse. And why lakehouse? Because that's the best place to keep raw data. So how to create a lakehouse? You will notice sooner or later that when you are in a specific workload, for example, in Power BI, if you click on the new button, you are limited to just Power BI items. But if you go and click, for example, on data engineering, now things change. So you see the buttons that allow you to quickly create your items in Fabric. So let's go and create a lakehouse and give it a lakehouse name. Lakehouse. What else? So Jeremy, to answer your question, Power BI Premium per user does not allow you to try Fabric. You need Fabric trial. You need to enable Fabric trial. Now, so your administrator has to enable Fabric trial, and that should give you access to Fabric trial without even having Premium per user. And then when you start creating, and you create a workspace, and you will be willing to create a lakehouse, for example, so Fabric item, you will be asked to start to spin up the trial. Check with your administrator or check in the options if Fabric is enabled and if Fabric trial option is enabled as well. Now I created the lakehouse. Notice that lakehouse has two sections. Files, which is for unmanaged data. So here, everything that is raw data lands. You actually can keep anything here, pretty much like a data lake. And tables, which is a managed section. Here, you will create tables. So I would say structured representation of your data for lakehouse. Okay, so people will be able to query the data using tables. So typically you can implement your analytics like this. You ingest the data into files, or if you want, directly to tables if possible, and then query the data using different engines, SQL, typically SQL. Now, let's do the exercise to show you some working analytics. So I'll create a subfolder called trip, trips maybe, okay? And so let's try to download some data from the web to my trips folder. So to get data into my lakehouse, I will use one of four techniques. One, I can upload the data manually. I will show you that in a second. But for this scenario, for trips, I will use data pipeline, which is very much like data factory pipeline. You have also data flow gen 2, known from Power BI, but extended, and it works a bit differently than the data flow you may know. And also you can use shortcut, which I will also show you later on. So let's use data pipeline. Let's call it load trips. Now, what I will do, I will take the data that comes from well-known open source, but publicly available data set called New York City taxi data. So if you don't know this data set, it's great for testing purposes. It's actually quite big. If you download all the files from all the years, that will give you billions of rows. So you can actually verify the performance of all the data sets in Power BI as well. Now, let's copy the data in my lakehouse. Hopefully, what I need to do is I will copy a single file. So I will get a link to my to a single file for January yellow taxi trips records. And come on, is it stacked? Well, let's refresh. It sometimes hangs up. Absolutely, demo gods are with me, but you know, it's not like every time it works like a charm. Let's see. Yeah, so rather do not switch between browser windows. So what I will do is I will go with HTTP. Actually, let's maybe search for that HTTP connector, and I will connect to the file. So I'll just paste the link to the file. There's no authentication required because it's just a publicly available website. And then I go and just create this connection. Now, the tricky part here is that I have to specify the data format, but when I do that, because I knew that's Parquet file, then it shows me the schema of the file. So it's good. And I will put it in existing lakehouse in the files section in my newly created trips folder. So that's why I created this folder, to actually keep the data for trips. Now the file name will be the same as original, so I will just paste it and go next. Okay. And it's Parquet, so I can save and run, and it just goes. So what it does, it actually saves this pipeline. It will be ready for reuse or scheduling. You can schedule it, as you can see at the top of this menu. In the meantime, it will execute this pipeline, so it will try to download the file into my lakehouse. Now, let's not wait for that because it will take a minute or two. Let's go back to my workspace and open my lakehouse just to upload some more data. So let's work simultaneously on multiple data sets. So now let's create another folder, payment types. This will be let's say a dimension called payment types, where I will upload manually one file, one CSV file to be precise, and it's called payment type final CSV. It's just a simple table of 6 rows, but you know, just for the purpose of this demo. So let's go to check if the file is here. I can even see the content. Simple file, you know. Now, to move this file, because it's actually ready, there's no transformation required. To move this file to my tables ready for querying, I can do very simple thing. I just right-click on the file and choose load to tables. I give it a name, payment type, and my table will be created in a few seconds. So as easy as possible. So this is the simplest way to create a table if you just have a file that needs to be converted into a table that you can query using SQL. Now, let's see if trips are there. Let's refresh this. Yeah, it's here. So now let's do some crazy things with this file, because it requires some transformation. So I will use data flow generation tool to actually go and transform the data, right? Let's see if it works for me. Demo gods are with me so far, and Fabric is with me as well. So let's get data. And yeah, here is 150 connectors. So I think I will just use search and search for lakehouse, because what I need to do is to go to the lakehouse. Go to my demo, point to my lakehouse, and I will go and select from files my trips Parquet file. Okay, that's my source. And what I want to do is to transform this data to make it ready for serving, right, for querying. So just, you know, Power Query interface. You open the Power Query interface that imports the data from your file. It shows the preview of the data, hopefully. Yes. So what I can do, I can choose only columns that I'm interested in. So let's choose this, maybe, and maybe total amount. Okay. So I choose just 6 or something columns from 20. And let's rename this column to pickup date. And also let's change this, the data type, maybe just like you normally do with Power BI, Power Query, or Power Query and Excel, and that's it. Now, the difference is that I not just want to transform this data, but also to load it back to the lakehouse as a table, right? So let's go and click next and load the data, save the data to the destination, which will be this time, again, demo lakehouse. And let's call this newly create table trip. Okay. Save settings. And we should be good. And when I click publish, it will do 2 things. One, it will save the data flow back to my workspace and it will run it. So it will immediately start transforming my data and building my table. Let's go back to the lakehouse and I will show you the third method, or maybe fourth, I can't remember, of getting data to your lakehouse, to tables. So let's create a shortcut. I know that somebody in my team created already a lakehouse that has one table that is super important for me, for my analytics. So I just go and connect to one lake and I select what is called Direct Lake Demo Lakehouse. And I will select a table called vendor, because that's what I need. This is another dimension describing vendors. And I just click create. And guess what? There is a table in my lakehouse, but the data sits in another lakehouse. So there's, again, no need to copy data between different parts of one lake. You just still have one logical storage for that. No copying of data. Let's refresh tables to see if trips is there. No, it's still going on. How you can check what's going on and if your data flow is still working, you can go to Monitoring Hub, and here you have lakehouse table load in progress. That's my data flow going on. So it will take some time. So in the meantime, I will show you a demo of Direct Lake, just to show you how performance may look when you build the whole thing. Okay, I will go back to this one to show you what's actually created and how you can access this data. So I will switch to one of the workspaces I created before. This is called Direct Lake Demo. And what I have here is a lakehouse that stores actually 3 or 4 tables. It's one thing that you need to know. When you create a lakehouse, it actually creates 3 items. A lakehouse itself, but then SQL endpoint for you to use for read-only access by SQL queries. This is how you work with data if you want to read from Power BI reports and datasets. And also it creates a default data set that works in direct lake mode and connects via SQL endpoint to your lakehouse. So that's how it works actually. So when I go to this default data set, when I go to a SQL endpoint, I can do modeling for default dataset using SQL endpoint experience or SQL endpoint editor. Well, that's tricky, but you will get the idea because it's pretty much the same what you have in Power BI. So notice there is a model tab at the bottom, and you can connect your tables using relationships as easy as in Power BI modeling editor. So you can create those relationships here. And here you can also start new report, which will be based on the default dataset. But I will switch to the tool that everyone knows if you're using Power BI. So Power BI Desktop. And let's connect to one Lake Data Hub, to Power BI dataset, which actually is used for this specific Direct Lake scenario. So I have my Direct Lake demo lakehouse dataset. I connect to it using Direct Lake mode. How would I know it's Direct Lake mode? Just wait a second. And here at the bottom, notice that it actually says it is direct lake mode. So what I can do, I can start building my report. For example, you can use the new card visual to present two numbers, passengers and trips in my case. Let's maybe do that. That should also optimize things because it sends one query. So add trips as well. Now, the first execution typically takes more time than expected, but then you can play with data. So I have 3 billion passengers and 2 billion trips, actually almost 2 billion rows in the table, which is quite significant. And then let's do some more slicing and dicing, for example, by date, by year. So let's put a year and the number of passengers on some meaningful chart, like, for example, column chart, right? And let's see. Again, working on 2 billion rows. There are no aggregations. I just loaded the data into the lakehouse, and then I just click on the default data set. It's like magic. So you can see that it's quite significant amount of data that you can query using direct query mode. Again, Power BI desktop, nothing new, right? Okay, let me go back to the browser. I know I am running out of time, but it's normal for me. So you saw several things how I can integrate the data. Now, I can also go and if I go back to my lakehouse, let's try and see if the trip table is here. So yes, I have all three tables. So now I can go and create my model, right? So I can go to my workspace. I know that default dataset modeling comes in SQL endpoint UI experience. So I go there, and hey, guess what? I can model those tables and connect columns like payment type and payment type, and I can connect vendor ID with vendor ID. Probably that's the right combination, right? So as you can see, modeling is just like you do it in Power BI. Now I can also query the data. So for example, here, let's write some SQL query. Maybe let's write something more sophisticated. Let me just copy some query that I prepared before. And here we go. Boom. This should go. So it's just a query that connects two tables, combines two tables. But keep in mind, one table is stored in this lakehouse, another one is stored in another lakehouse, and we created a shortcut. So it's actually a combination of data that was prepared by two different teams. That's pretty amazing capability, and you can actually immediately go and create data sets, reports, and everything on top of this data. So again, if you prefer SQL, there is SQL experience. There is also warehouse experience, which is purely SQL, very much like SQL endpoint. The UI is similar, but you can also write data. So there's support for transactions, for example. So to finalize this demo, I know I have no time for everything, but let me just show you how I can easily connect to external storage, just to prove that it's super powerful. Again, we are working with almost pretty much like Azure Data Storage Generation 2. So I have storage account in Azure. What I will do is I will go and select endpoint for data lake storage primary endpoint. I will copy that, and in my lakehouse, in the files section, I will create a new shortcut from data lake storage generation 2. Okay. And I will just paste the URL. And that should be good if I sign in. Yes, the same user. So I just use the same user that I use in Fabric to connect to Azure Data Lake Storage, which sits in the same tenant. Now let's go and create connection to my bronze. I know that there is a bronze container, and let's give this container name bronze. And within few seconds, see that I can access the data that sits in my external storage. It's not Fabric. You can see containers, and you can see that there is bronze container, which contains exactly those 4 folders with data. And I can query this data or I can do data engineering and bring this data to tables or whatever I need. So again, lots of capabilities on the way. I only scratched the surface using showing you this, but I just want to finalize and wrap up this presentation with some call to action for you. Now, if you have a phone, you can scan the QR code that is in the left bottom corner of the screen, and this will send you to my latest newsletter that contains all those links. I will share the deck in PDF with the organizers of this meeting, but again, my call to action for you is this: try Fabric. Super easy to start. You should be able to even start your own tenant. Create your own tenant for testing purposes. That's easy. You don't have to play with Fabric in your organizational tenants. Join Fabric community. That's number 2. aka.ms/Fabric community. You can ask your questions. You can answer questions sent by other users. You can learn by solving problems. You can also access some resources. For Power BI community members, it's pretty much the same community. You just have additional stuff like forums for Synapse workloads and Azure data and Data Factory in Fabric. Also, share your ideas about the product, how we can improve Fabric, what we should build in the product as well. This will be also considered by the team. And if you want to learn, I would highlight 2 resources for you to start with. One will be Microsoft Learn free learning path, and another would be the end-to-end scenario tutorials, 4 tutorials that cover 4 scenarios: Lakehouse, Warehouse, Real-Time Analytics, and Data Science. With that, I think it's time to take questions. I know that I was on a hurry during this presentation, but hey, we're good.
It's great. We have many questions. Let's start with the 2 last questions. Probably it's the simplest.
Yeah.
Do you have option to creating tables with specific columns?
Yes. You can create. So what I didn't show you.
Performance. If your query take only several of the columns, the question is about performance. Will it help to actually make it better?
Yes. So of course that's a good question. If you create white tables, you don't take care about what you put in your serving layer. So in tables that will be consumed by Direct Lake, this may impact performance because it may actually go beyond capacity, compute power, or memory, as you can guess, and that will put you in direct query mode. So yes, you still have to model data. It's not that we get away from data modeling. Absolutely not.
Okay, can you check the last question? I'm not sure.
With so high flexibility to work on data in different lakehouses, how you manage silos and house. So there is a layer of security that is controlled on one lake level. So you can actually the very first access control is by standard role-based access control like you have in Power BI. So you just have roles: viewer, member, contributor, which can greatly limit the access to one lake resources. As I said, security right now in Fabric is in starting mode, I would say. So you should see features coming up later on. But the idea is to first of all limit the access as much as possible to files sitting behind specific items or specific workspaces, and then provide more granular mechanisms for different runtimes, for example, row level security, etc. What I haven't shown you is actually that this data that I was putting in the lake houses and etc. lands in one lake, just like you normally access ADLS. So you can use Storage Explorer to actually access this, and you can see here is a folder for data warehouse, another folder for lakehouse. So you can easily limit the access for people by simply managing, even controlling access over folders and files. So that's what you can do. Also, there's one another way for more business users to consume one lake, or even to upload the data from your local computers to one lake, because there is one lake File Explorer, which is integrated into File Explorer in Windows. So as you can see, I see my workspaces here. If I do refresh, I should see my demo workspace as well. Let me just do refresh. Come on. Demo gods are not with me all the time, but it should be there in some time. But what I was saying is that whenever you create a workspace and some items, you can also access data here. So again, it's flexible, but still you have control over who does what. Okay, and we will put more and more control over time. So before general availability, you should have full control over what's going on. And also there is an integration with Purview coming, so you'll be able to cover your data estate with centralized management. Okay.
There is a question about the Azure portal. You present us the Power BI and the Fabric interface, but the question is, can we follow the object that we are using, the source in the Azure portal?
No. So Fabric is actually you work with Fabric either in UI of Fabric, so web experience, or for specific cases you can access using tools like Management Studio or Visual Studio Code. For example, you can connect to SQL endpoints just like you connect to SQL Server and work with your SQL endpoints going to Lakehouse or warehouses, like you work with SQL Server. But other than that, it's rather UI of Fabric. Plus, we will provide ways to access everything using APIs. But I wouldn't expect.
So I want to add to this question. Yeah. This was a question from someone from the audience. I want to add to this question. Okay, so I understand that it's separately from the portal. It's not using the same. But can we work with the Fabric with PowerShell, for example, with commands?
Right now, I think the API is quite limited, so I'm not sure what's in the documentation. You have to check. Right now, it's probably not much. Some of the things may be for use if you've been using Power BI API or Power BI libraries in PowerShell. That may be, for example, monitoring, etc. That's possible to achieve. But
okay, so
other than that,
PowerShell
it's still in
Power BI.
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, the APIs will be extended for other items that are new in Fabric, but in general, I think it's more or less very similar to what we have in Power BI. So based on workspaces, etc. Now, about portal, you can create Fabric capacities which can be paused and resumed in Azure. So yes, you can use portal to create those, and they will be visible if you create them in the same tenant as your Fabric tenant, right? What else? Well, you can access, as you saw, you can access one lake using ADLS API. So you consume it very much like you do with storage accounts, right? Do I have to buy Power BI license? There is a blog post and a great video from GuineCube on licensing. There are cases, so for Power BI content, you still need Power BI Pro license. If you want to create data sets, reports, etc., I think the only case when you don't need the Power BI Pro license is when you create a report on top of default data set created with a lakehouse. In other cases, when you create your own data sets and when you create your reports based on your own data sets, you still need Power BI Pro license at least, right? So check the blog. Fabric blog is here or not? Yes, it's here. Check out the Fabric blog. There is an article from Michiel Weigel on licensing and pricing of Fabric, and you can read that. You can read that, and go to Guy in a Cube. There is a great video from Adam on licensing and pricing of Fabric. Okay.
Let's have one more question just before we need to close, because it was asked twice already. Yeah. Can you say something about the observability?
So observability is actually based on the KQL and Kusto engine. So you can find observability elements in the real-time analytics workload. It's tricky, but yes, it's doable. So you can build ad hoc queries on top of massive amounts of data coming in, appending streams of data, structured, semi-structured. And also, I think part of observability will be implemented by Data Activator, because it will be more than just observability. You will be able to spin up actions, not just in Fabric but also in different systems like Power Platform, for example. So that's what will come later this year. Optimization on Spark Engine. Yes, there are optimizations. We do optimizations by default. So V-ordering is the optimization we do. Typically, when you upload significant amount of data to Delta tables, it takes few minutes to implement this V-ordering. So when you start working immediately after your table is visible, the performance may be a bit lower than expected, but when it finishes the V-ordering process, then you should be good with Direct Lake. Okay.
Okay, usually we are flexible with the time, but today the speakers, Pawel, need to go to speak in another event. This is why we are a bit hairy. I just wanted to remind you, Pawel, please send me the PowerPoint.
I will.
You can send it close as PDF or open, it's your call. Yeah. We will publish it, so you will be able to take all the links from there. And I want to thank you a lot. It's a great session, great topic, and obviously to thanks everyone who came here. We will publish the recording, assuming it will be recorded well. Usually it is. So again, thanks a lot.
One final comment from me. I know that some of you sitting here are data engineers, hard code-based people. So again, the first experience that Fabric goes with in public preview is much the ease of use and not code-based. So sooner or later, before GA, you will see more API stuff, and that's how you will be able to implement, for example, full DevOps and CI/CD processes, create artifacts and workspaces that will store those workspaces. So stay tuned, observe the platform. We present monthly updates. It's as intensive as Power BI. So yes. Hope you like this session. Thank you very much for having me, Ronan, and the team. You have a great community, lots of folks, love it. Happy to see this big community interested in Fabric, and I hope you will test the product. Let me know if you need to share some thoughts. Just I love to hear everything from you. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. And I have to go for another meeting. that's a terrible
Thanks a lot for your
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye-bye. And we are closing the session. So thanks a lot, everyone, again. Bye-bye.
Great questions. Thank you very much.